Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, a win. Craig Kimbrell did not blow a one-run lead. We'll talk about Tony Gonsolin and his last few starts. We'll talk about Caleb Ferguson and if we trust them. And we'll get into a few other things on the pitching staff. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans, welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is Locked On Dodgers, and you can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And make it easy on yourself and subscribe in all those places, and you'll get the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue straight to you every Monday through Friday. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio. I'm usually joined by a co-host, Jeff Snider, but today it'll just be me rolling, as I like to say, solo dolo. And we'll be covering the Dodgers win over the Brewers back in the win column after Craig Kimbrell gave it up on Tuesday. Craig Kimbrell came in a one-run game in the ninth inning, and he put a couple runners on base, but he did not give up the tying or winning runs. He picked up the save. We'll get into that, but first, let's get into Tony Gonsolin, because Tony Gonsolin has been a guy who struggled a little bit right before the All-Star break, struggled a little bit coming out of the All-Star break, but has seemingly righted the ship, at least to a certain extent, and looked really good and looked like the Tony Gonsolin we remember from the first half of the season. On Wednesday, he went 7 innings, just gave up 2 hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, no runs. It was, I don't know if it's a vintage Tony Gonsolin performance, but vintage, if you mean vintage first half Tony Gonsolin, that's what it looked like. Deep into the game, actually picked up a little more strikeouts than we're used to seeing from him, which is a good sign. And even if the Brewers aren't a great offensive team, it's still a positive to see him pitch deep into a game, pitch well, limit contact, and be that guy that the Dodgers need. With Walker Buehler out, every starting pitcher has a little bit extra spotlight on him. Tony Gonsolin being one of those main guys. We know Julio is good. We've seen Julio in the postseason be good. There's not as much concern there. We know Clayton Kershaw, if he comes back healthy, that he's good and that he has had success in the postseason. We're not going to get into the deepest specifics, but Clayton Kershaw has shown to be good in the postseason in the past. We haven't necessarily seen that with Tony Gonsolin. He had a little bit of a weird 2020, and I think mishandled a little bit. Him and Dustin May were mishandled a little bit in 2020 run, but either way, it worked out for the Dodgers. But Tony Gonsolin, for him, not so much. Didn't quite work out. He struggled in that postseason and currently carries a 9.45 ERA in the postseason between last year and this year. And he's a guy that's going to have, like I said, that spotlight on him with Walker Buehler out. And for him to get back on track, for him to look like the guy he looked like early in the year, that's a good sign. Over his last 3 starts, he's gone 7 innings, 6 2/3, and 5 innings. He's given up 1 earned run total in those 3 starts, and he's given up 7 total hits and 5 total walks. So he's been able to get back to being efficient enough. That San Diego start not as efficient, obviously just the 5 innings, but San Diego at that point had what we thought was going to be a pretty good offense. So he was able to limit them. And now we come to the point where we're getting to the next segment of the Dodgers thinking about going with a 6-man rotation. And that's where the conversation for Gonsolin comes into play a little bit. He's now thrown 123.1 innings this season. His professional career high in the season is 128. That was back in 2018 when he started 26 games in high A and double A for the Dodgers. So he's approaching his career high in innings pitched. The little bit difference with Tony Gonsolin is that he's a little bit older of a prospect. So there's not necessarily a reason to kind of limit his innings. I mean, he's 28 years old. He's, he's a guy that he's an athlete first and or basically an athlete that pitches. They're not every pitcher is, quote unquote an athlete, depending on your definition. But my definition is kind of like someone that could play other sports or could do other things. There's some guys that they just happen to throw hard and that makes them a pitcher. By trade, they're an athlete, but they're mostly a pitcher. Tony Gonsolin was a guy who was a position player who ended up becoming a pitcher. And I think it just changes things for me, at least in my mind, a little bit when you are an athlete as compared to just a pitcher. So I think that helps him out a little bit. And, I think the fact of the matter is just with his arsenal, heavy on the sinking stuff, we've seen guys that have sinking stuff kind of say that when they are maybe a little fatigued or a little tired, it doesn't necessarily hurt them too much. It might even help them a little bit, getting a little more drop and a little more sink to their arsenal. So that could help out there. But with Gonsolin, I think he's a guy that we've talked about, maybe a phantom IL stint here and there. And you don't want to do it kind of when he's rolling like he is right now. But I do think that either the Dodgers could go straight 6-man the rest of the way, basically, or give Tony Gonsolin a couple starts off. We'll see what happens there. But Tony Gonsolin looking good. And I think it's Julio, guaranteed playoff starting pitcher. Kershaw, if he comes back healthy, guaranteed playoff starting pitcher. After that, I don't think there's any guarantees in this Dodgers pitching staff. So I think Tony Gonsolin is pitching for a spot as a starter in October. He's competing with Tyler Anderson. He's competing with Andrew Heaney, and now going to be competing with Dustin May once Dustin May returns. So Gonsolin also has something to pitch for, something to play for, and if he can step up to the challenge, that'd be great for the Dodgers and be a big boost. If he can be what he's been all season for the Dodgers in October, then they're still going to miss Walker Buehler, but they won't miss him as much as they would have before. So shout out to Tony Gonsolin. He may need just a little bit more of a break here in the next month and a half, but it's good to see, and I'm very excited to see him continue to thrive and do well. Like I mentioned, 6-man rotation, going to come at least one more time through the lineup or through the rotation. So we're going to get into that. But first, let's get into this. So you're hanging out with friends. Maybe you're at a Dodger game, hanging out with some friends, putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many. And as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. But now you live nearby, or no, you think you got it and you can make it home. It's no big deal. What are the odds you get pulled over anyways? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, or you kill someone. And everyone knows the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. All right. So Dave Roberts said Ryan Pepiot will remain with the Dodgers at least one more time through the rotation. The Dodgers will go to 6-man. Dustin May joins the team, and he should be throwing on Saturday. And this is something that we've talked about. Jeff and I have talked about in the last few weeks, just kind of preparing for the rest of the regular season. And I think it's one of those where, for me, I think it's 6-man rotation until Kershaw comes back. There's no reason not to, other than, if things don't quite work out and your bullpen becomes a little taxed because you're carrying 6 starters instead of, 5 starters. But I think with the number of arms they have right now and with the guys that they have right now, I think it's beneficial to everybody for them to stick with this 6-man rotation. You have Julio, who I'm not concerned about, and you have Tyler Anderson, who I'm not concerned about just because he's a veteran. But after that, you got Tony Gonsolin, who, like I mentioned, is coming up on his professional, most innings ever thrown in his professional career in a season. You got Andrew Heaney, who's been limited. Pitch count will never be as high as they want him to, and who has already been on the injured list 2 or 3 times this year and hasn't been able to get it going. He seems to have some momentum, but you want to keep that momentum going. You have Ryan Pepiot, younger pitcher, trying to limit his innings still a little bit, I would imagine, but still want to see what he can do for you. And you got Dustin May, who's going to be coming off Tommy John surgery and realistically won't be ramped up to like 100 pitches maybe until a month past his first start on Saturday. So you got guys that you're not necessarily babying, but you also would like to be cautious with, and I think that gives you the impetus to go with this 6-man rotation. And just based on what they have, I mean, it basically comes down to do you want an extra bullpen arm or do you want this 6-man rotation? And with the arms that they have right now, based on injuries and the arms that they would have available to them, there's not a lot to, it's either do you want to have Ryan Pepiot around to start every other day or whatever, or do you want Justin Brewer, Jake Reed to be in the Dodgers bullpen? And realistically, when it comes down to that, Justin Brewer, I do think has gotten a little bit short end of the stick this season in terms of maybe should have got a little bit more runway in terms of what he's shown. I do think that he's not necessarily a guy that I'm going to be clamoring for, especially when it comes over Ryan Pepiot on the 6-man rotation. So 6-man, keep it. You got Brusdar Graterol supposed to come back this weekend. Reyes Maranta, easy fix right there to get him down and fit onto the active roster. But then when you get past that, this is where there's a decision coming, and I'm not entirely sure how it's going to go. I think I have a feeling how it's going to go. You got 2 pitchers coming back. You got Dustin May, you got Brusdar Graterol. You got Reyes Maranta, that's for sure one on the active roster that'll get moved. And I think Phil Bickford is going to be the other guy because you look at everything else, and it's all the starting pitchers. And then you got Bickford, Ferguson, Kimbrel, Chris Martin, Evan Phillips, David Price, Alex Vesia. You're not going to do it to Vesia. You're not going to move Price at this point. You're not moving Phillips. You're not moving Kimbrel. You're not moving Chris Martin. And you're not moving Caleb Ferguson. So Phil Bickford seems to be the other guy that's going to come down this weekend when Graterol and Dustin May are both activated. And yeah, that's the way it goes. That's the matter of it. So, but like I said, 6-man rotation is something that the Dodgers should do if they can through the rest of the regular season. I wouldn't be upset about it, but at least till Kershaw comes back. And then when Kershaw comes back, they can evaluate. They can even still stick to a 6-man. But at that point, I think the one reason you wouldn't stick to a 6-man rotation the rest of the way is you are only going to use 4 starters at most in the postseason. So you need to find out if you're going to have 2 of those starters or, 1 to 2 starters move into a bullpen role, or if you're going to have, you get more than enough guys back. You get Trinan, let's just say you get Trinan and Canley back, and then Graterol, and then, Kershaw and everyone else, and then you figure out, okay, what are we going to do? Who are our 4 starters and who are all our relievers? And I think that's the only reason you wouldn't go to a 6-man, but I think you would go, at that point, you'd go to a modified 6-man where you might have some piggyback starts. Let's just say, down the line, you got Julio, Kershaw, Gonsolin starting 3 games. And let's just say you're trying to find out that 4th game. Do you want a piggyback situation? Do you want a May, a Dustin May, Tyler Anderson combo? Do you want a Dustin May, Andrew Heaney combo? Do you want, what kind of combination do you want? And you try to win it that way. Because, like I said, the Dodgers, I'm sure they're starting to think about this. They're starting to plan out. When you get to the postseason, and if there's not those days off that you used to having built in between games, you went back to back to back to back, then it's a matter of can you steal a game using 3 pitchers? Whether it's, like Dustin May for 4, Tyler Anderson for 4, so whoever for the 9th, or, Dustin May for 5, Tyler Anderson can maybe close out the game, and you try to get by with that. Or do you want to go the route where you have 4 starting pitchers and everyone else is a reliever that's expected to pitch, multiple days or back-to-back days, or if need be back-to-back-to-back days? There's different ways to approach it. But I do think, however they are going to approach it, they need to start working on it because, if you're going to have an Andrew Heaney or Tyler Anderson or even May or even Gonsolin in a type of role where they have to pitch multiple days in a multiple day span or back-to-back days, you need to prepare them for that. And you need to, they can't start. They can come in and fill that role. So it's obviously it's August 18th. There's a lot of time left. But like I said, with the Dodgers in the position they are, division basically wrapped up. Yes, they're fighting for the number one seed in the NL and in general. I don't know if the squeeze, I don't know if the squeeze to go all out for the number one seed is worth the juice at this point when you would have to play there's a different way to play the season out. There's a way to play it out where you're going all in for the number one seed, and there's a way where you know you're going to be a top two seed in the National League. You're going to get that first round bye regardless, and you're going to be able to set yourself up to see how you're going to play in October. And I think that's the boat the Dodgers are in. And regardless, it's not like doing it the second way. It's not like the second way of figuring out your October configurations guarantees the Dodgers aren't going to keep playing winning baseball because offensively, it's going to be the same. They're not moving around much offensively. You're going to have the same pretty much lineup. And now you're basically just figuring out between Gallo, Muncy, Bellinger, Taylor. You're basically kind of finding out configurations of those guys. Pretty much everyone else is going to be the same. And when it comes to pitching, it's not like you're starting or playing lesser pitchers. You're just putting guys in different situations. Will they maybe fail in those situations? It's possible, but realistically, they're all good pitchers. And if it's just a matter of, Tyler Anderson coming out of the bullpen rather than starting. Andrew Heaney coming out of the bullpen rather than starting. Dustin May, who's done it before, coming out of the bullpen rather than starting. They've done that stuff before. So it's a matter of you're still going to be playing winning baseball regardless. But obviously, it's just a slightly different tactic of going all out for that number one seed or playing to figure out, your best options for October. That's where the Dodgers are at. Either way, like I said, I think 6-man rotation for the next few weeks would be beneficial. And then you start locking down and trying to figure out different combinations of what you're going to do and put guys in some different situations that you might need them to be in. And basically treat this as October light the rest of the way after a couple weeks where, you might see Andrew Heaney come in the 8th inning. You might see Tyler Anderson try to close out a game. Like there might be different things that happen just to kind of figure out what you got and how you're going to utilize this roster. So, but all in all, 6-man rotation in favor. Keep it going. Keep these guys rested and ready and locked and loaded and all the other cliches that you can think of. So we're going to Caleb Ferguson gave up his first run of the season yesterday, but do we trust him 100% yet in a big role for the Dodgers? That's what we're going to get into. But first, let's talk about Liver Health Formula by Pure Health Research. Liver Health Formula contains 8 liver-boosting super nutrients like turmeric, beet, and artichoke extract, all of which work together to wake up a sluggish liver and turn it into a toxin-flushing and fat-burning machine. No more bloated belly, no more uncomfortable digestion, no more feeling tired and low on energy all the time. And best of all, Liver Health Formula makes it easier to maintain a healthy body weight long term. So if you're struggling with any of these things, bloated belly, digestive issues, feeling tired and sluggish, there's a good chance you might have an overworked liver. That's where Liver Health Formula from Pure Health Research can help. And as a Locked On Dodgers listener right now, you can get Liver Health Formula risk-free today and get a free bottle of Curb Fit with your order. Curb Fit's a safe and natural appetite suppressant, making it easy to say no to naughty foods. It's a perfect complement to Liver Health Formula. So go to getliverhelp.com/MLB to learn more. That's getliverhelp.com/MLB to try Liver Health Formula completely risk-free and claim your free bottle of Curb Fit with your order. One last time, that's getliverhelp.com/MLB to get started. All right, let's wrap up with Caleb Ferguson. He gave up his first run of the season, and no real concern there. This segment has been a conversation that I've been thinking about for the last week or two, and it's obviously coming to prominence now with Caleb Ferguson kind of being the main lefty out of the pen. We talked about David Price the other day and how I believe the Dodgers should give him some more high leverage situations. We've talked about Alex Vesia throughout the year. He's been a little bit up and down, not quite as uh, dominant as he was last year. You don't trust him quite as much, but you still trust him. And that's now where we're at with Caleb Ferguson. Yes, his ERA is the low. It's 0.46. He hit his first run, and he's, but it's a matter of how is he doing this? Is it something that's sustainable, and is it something that you trust? And I've looked at some numbers. I've looked at, his pitches this year. I've kind of seen compared to the past, and obviously it's hard with him. It's a little bit tough. He's never thrown. 2019 was when he threw the most in a major league season, 46 games, 44 innings. In 2018, less games but more innings, and then 2020, the dominant 2020. So you go to start to look and see what's different this year, and it's not concerning, but it's something that you want to see more of over the next 6-8 weeks, whatever they have left. And it's because Caleb Ferguson, his strikeout rate is lower than most of his career, and he has an extremely low BABIP. That's batting average on balls in play. It's extremely low compared to his career and compared to the average in baseball. So you look at his BABIP, and this year his on balls that are hit in play, there's a 116 batting average. And in his career in 2018, 2019, 2020, those BABIP numbers were 292, 291, 293. So if you go based off of that and you go based off of, his career norm, there's a lot of regression coming, which isn't necessarily the greatest thing. And then you try to think, well, maybe he has different, he has different pitching profile. He had the Tommy John, he's coming back. Maybe he's pitching a little bit differently. But it's also a matter of, okay, he's getting a little bit lucky in terms of on the batting average on balls in play, but he's also not necessarily missing the bats as he used to. Like I said, his strikeout he has less strikeouts than innings pitched, which is not something you're used to. He has 18 strikeouts and 19 and 2/3 innings pitched, and his strikeout percentage is 25.7%, which is not that far off from 2018, 2019, when he was at 29.2 and 26.5%. It's way lower than it was in his breakout 2020 season when he was at 36%, strikeouts. Now he's down to 25.7. It's not alarming. It's not like, oh my God, he's way down, because he's basically almost on par with his first two seasons, just not on par with what we saw in 2020. And that's kind of where a lot of this comes from with Ferguson was 2020 who he is, or was 2020 an outlier? And that's kind of where you sit here, because you look at everything, and 2020 was a bit of an outlier in general. His strikeout percentage was 5% higher than his previous career high. He had what else did he have? He had, ERA was 2020. His ERA was better than ever before. His FIP was better than ever before. His strikeouts were better than ever before. He was walking guys at a lower clip than ever before. And it's a matter of, was that Caleb Ferguson, or is there the combination of all 4 seasons so far, what you get from Caleb Ferguson? And yeah, I don't know. I can't really say. I do think the good thing, and maybe where some of this luck on balls in play comes from, is that he has the lowest barrel percentage allowed in his career so far this year. So the barrel comes down to hard hit. Forgot exactly what the classification is. I think his ball is like over 95 miles an hour with a certain degree launch angle. He's lowered that. He's really, really low on that. His barrel percentage from 2018 to 2020 was 6.3, 6.0, and 6.7%. This year he's at 2.3%. So he's limiting hard contact. Just in general, hard hit percentage, like I said, 38%, 33%, 33%, this year 30%. So he's limiting hard contact. He's really limiting barrels. And that's kind of what's helped with batting average on balls in play, because he was a guy that was susceptible to giving up the home run. His home run per nine was 1.47, 1.41, 1.93. This year he's yet to give up a home run, so it's at 0. But he's also not giving up barrels, which barrels can sometimes lead to home runs. So he's limiting hard contact. He's limiting barrels. And how is he doing it? Well, he's doing it with a little bit different of a pitch mix. And the numbers on him are interesting, because you go to Fangraphs, you go to Baseball Savant, and they're kind of confused. It seems like you go to you look at pitch type this year that he's thrown, and in Fangraphs they have him at 68.4% fastballs and 31.6% curveballs. No, on that. But then you go to pitch info, and they have him 68.4% fastball, but then instead of curveball, they have it listed under slider, the 31.6%. And then you go to pitch velocity, they have it listed under slider. You go to Baseball Savant, they have it listed as a curveball. They have a four-seam fastball and a curveball, but they have his 2020 slider pitch listed as a cutter. So it's a breaking ball of some sorts. I guess you'd have to ask him exactly what they want to call it. But either way, he's throwing it more often than he has in the past. He's been a big fastball-heavy guy in the past, throwing his fastball at least 71% every single season of his career. This year is down to 68.4%, and he's got the breaking ball up to 31%. So that could contribute to it. He's catching guys off guard, and he's being able to, locate very well and be able to, limit the hard contact and catch guys in that situation. All in all, what am I trying to say? Do I trust Caleb Ferguson? As of now, yeah, I trust him. And I do think, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable bringing him into a high leverage situation. But also, I'm a little worried about the regression on batting average on balls in play, because there's not necessarily anything he's doing differently or better than he has in the past, other than he's upped his breaking ball percentage a little bit. And yeah, that's really all it is. He's limiting the barrel percentage. He's limiting hard contact, but it's not because of, he's not throwing harder. He's not throwing he doesn't have a new pitch. He just has a little bit different usage. So am I worried a little bit about the regression? Yes, but the good thing is that he can still regress and still be a guy for the Dodgers in October, because he can figure it out. If he has that regression the rest of the regular season, it might be, a matter of sequencing. He might switch up. He might go back to heavy fastball. It's all about adjustments. Teams are going to adjust to pitchers. Pitchers are going to adjust back. And if you can time it right, then it could work out, because let's just say, Ferguson's throwing so far this year. Maybe teams start making that adjustment now and the rest of the season. And let's just say he struggles a little bit the rest of the way. Okay, but now the ball's back in Ferguson's court of making those adjustments. And now he has those adjustments for October, where, there's not enough time to make adjustments in series too much, especially if he's only going to face you once or twice in an entire series. So I trust Caleb Ferguson right now. I little concerned about regression the rest of the regular season, but that doesn't concern me too much for October, because, like I said, the adjustments can be made, and he'll only continue to get stronger as the season goes on. That's going to do it for me. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Check out Locked On MLB with Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, for your second listen of the day, the number one daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB. You can find it wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. That's where you can find us if you search for Locked On Dodgers. Also, you can search for Locked On Dodgers on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find us there. You can also find Jeff on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Samperio. DMs are open in all those accounts if you need to get hold of us. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Search my device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree, you just have to listen. Have a good one.